Hello guys and girls, how's it going? Screezilla here and I hope you're all well. And you join me today in the AEC Mark II armoured car. The Associated Equipment Company of Southall Middlesex, already well known for some designs, such as the double-decker bus of Britain, the big red double-decker buses, started designing military vehicles on the outbreak of sort of World War II. Now, they provided a lot of military trucks, a lot of military vehicles, a lot of bases for artillery and the such. Over 10,000 vehicles were built from 1941 to 1944, and this included the 10-ton 4x4 Matador artillery tractor. Also the 6x6 AEC Marshall. But we don't need to talk about the Marshall because the Matador is the chassis that this armoured car is based on. Now, this is a very cool armoured car. The AEC armoured car is arguably the first wheeled tank. Now, you can absolutely have a tank on wheels. It's all about thickness of the armour. We'll get into that later on. Many armoured cars have been built at the start of the war, and especially, in World War I and things like that. Daimler armoured cars were very common, with the 2-pounder guns, a 40mm gun. The Humber, which had a 37mm gun, as did the M8 Greyhound in America. Staghound, another American model. The Soviets had the BA-3, also to the BA-11 series, which were basically, they were essentially trucks with tank turrets. The Germans, of course, had many armoured cars and half-tracks. The difference with the AEC armoured car was the gun and the armour it had. Now, this was fitted with a now this is the this is the Valentine. I think the Valentine turret. I've got to think because there's some really iffy stuff. Now we get a first kill there, pretty easy stuff there. Good thing is we can also scout in this tank as well. It had the Valentine turret on there, which gave it a 57mm gun, a very big gun for a armoured car. This was essentially able to take out tanks with relative ease. It was also relatively fast, relatively easy to drive, relatively agile, cost effective, things like that. It was more roomy than the Valentine tank, and the turret ring was plenty large enough to support turrets which were even bigger. It had lots of compartments for spare parts, and the crew were relatively comfortable in there as well. It was also very easy to work on and light for transportation. The AEC Mark II has a 195 diesel engine with 158 horsepower. It's around about 12.7 tons, with its heavier turret containing the 6-pounder, the 57mm gun. It also had a coaxial Baser 8mm machine gun, as well as a Bren gun placed on top for taking out aircraft. It was effective as an anti-aircraft vehicle, with the Bren at least. Now we take a shot at the T-28 and miss there. Now, the AEC did quite a lot. Although better armed and armoured than most of the wheeled vehicles of the time, the AEC was not that agile and not that fast compared to others. Its height made it an easier target to spot as well. Tactically, reconnaissance units didn't use these tanks because they were so tall and easy to spot, but they did participate in many battles, notably El Alamein in November in Africa and things like that. The majority of them were serving in the British Indian Army, and also in complement to the American Staghounds, They also operated in Italy and all across the Western Europe and northern France and the Low Countries until 1945. It worked really well, and the vehicle actually continued to fight with the Lebanese army up until 1976. So it was quite a long-lived little armoured car. Now, in-game, this is a Christmas reward. You get it for 7 of the tanker toys, and it's pretty damn good. It could be better, but it's pretty good for what it is. Now, we're just sort of scooching around here and keeping an eye on things. Now, you get the usual bells and whistles. You know, you get scouting with this tank, you get artillery. You don't get any smoke, which it should have. This vehicle did have smoke launchers. Some of them did, some of them didn't. But some of them, the Mark II, for instance, generally did carry a smoke grenade launcher. There's a few modelling inconsistencies, as is this there. Now, we scout it out straight away. We use our machine gun on it, take out the gunner and the loader. We miss our follow-up shot, but he's taken out swiftly afterwards. Just going to pause it here for one moment, sorry. I just want to check something there. I did not see that guy there. Huh. Well, he's not having a good day. That little Zisverti there is a little bit stuck. Oh well, we missed out on a free kill. So all in all, it was a good vehicle, and it was a good base-off as well. It had the anti-aircraft variants. It had a few variants worked off it as well. The AEC Mark III, for instance, actually had a 75mm gun on it. And this had the same turret as the... tank it was. The Churchill. It had the same turret as the Cromwell and the Churchill at the time. That's the Mark III, as I say. So unfortunately we haven't got that just yet, but I imagine it will be coming. Now, one of the inconsistencies for this vehicle is actually the armour. It should have much more armour than it does in game. And that's a little bit problematic, because this was designed to be a mobile tank, basically. It had 65mm of sloped armour at the front, whereas in game I think it only has about 25 to 30mm. This gave it an effective thickness of nearly 90mm at the front. When you consider into the turret as well, from the front this thing was pretty much impenetrable. Now we've got a T-50 coming down here. Now I'm pretty sure he's spotted me. I actually got a kill with my artillery strike as well, which was quite nice. So we've got 2 assists, 2 kills. Comes barreling down. I hit his commander, light him up with the machine gun, but the fast reload here is what saves me. I can get my shot off before he can get his off, and I take him out with ease, straight through the front of that Russian light tank. This thing has ridiculous penetration, and it has very good shrapneling as well. Honestly, this armoured car is fantastic, and if you can get your hands on it, get your hands on it while you can, because this thing is brilliant fun. It is the true countermeasure for the Shah B1s, sorry, Shah B2s, because you can just go straight through the front of any tank at this BR. 120mm or 112mm at long range is more than enough for you. So, all in all, this armoured car is an interesting one. It has an interesting history, and it was a very useful vehicle. It did very well in the war, and in-game it performs very well too. Now we'll head back to the hangar here, and we'll have a look at it in the hangar view. So 3 kills, 2 assists in that game. Pretty easy game, as you saw as well. So this is actually the festive camouflage that you get. It's a sort of tricolour desert camouflage. But as you can see, this tank is very small. It's the same chassis as the AC here, with the Crusader AAA turret on it. This was actually a tested model. It wasn't used in combat though. So let's go back. Now, as you see from the front armour here, we've only got 25mm of armour. So this should be, what did I say? It should be 60 millimeters, I think I said. 65 millimeters. So this section here should be 65 millimeters, as well as this front mudguard. This mudguard was just a mudguard. In fact, the actual tank went down to this spot here, and so the driver's compartment basically. Sorry, don't want to click on that one. So the driver's compartment, as you can see here, was sort of all encased, protecting him. It was sort of like a modular design. And as I said, it had a lot of armour thickness, so it could work as an actual tank. Even so, it has got quite a lot of sloping, so you do bounce the odd shot. The turret has got plenty of armour, so again, you do have that strength in that regard. The turret ring as well is possibly a little bit iffy, because again, that should be a bit thicker too. The rear of the tank is about right for its armour, but it did, again, side armour should be a little bit thicker. I think it had, from memory, 40 millimeters or 30 millimeters of side and rear armour. It was a relatively armoured little creature, but it was so small it just didn't weigh a huge amount. The side sections here were compartments for spares and bits like that. As you can see, the crew, you've got a crew of 3 in here, but again, there is possible that there was a crew of 4. There is mention that there was a crew of 4 in a couple of technical documents. But again, I don't know how you fit 4 people in there with ease. The armoured car anti-aircraft gun absolutely did have 4 people in it because of the open top system, whereas the enclosed model really would have only had room for 3 people, but it was a relatively spacey vehicle. The engine is good. You get a good amount of horsepower, although a bit too much for the true numbers. Well, I say a bit too much. The Type 2, I think, did have 158 horsepower, because it had the 195 diesel. So that's actually right. Sorry, I'm thinking of the Type 1. The transmission is your 4-wheel drive system, and that works all well. And generally, this is a really fun little tank to play. You have plenty of penetration. If we look at the modifications here, you've got some very good shots available to you, the solid shots. I just generally use the Mark 9, but the Mark 5 has a good shrapneling effect once post-penetration. There's no point taking the high explosives, really. The machine gun gives you a nice little bit of extra punch and for light vehicles. It also acts as a scout vehicle, so you have the airstrike ability as well as the improved optics and the scouting ability. If you can get your hands a hold of this, absolutely do. You will love it to death. And it does make a pretty much all armoured car lineup viable for War Thunder for the British now, with the Daimler car and the T-17E2 anti-aircraft car in there as well. Okay guys, I hope you've enjoyed this video and this brief history of and a little bit of information and found it somewhat useful. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this little armoured tank, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much and have a lovely day. Screezilla out. Bye bye.